Ready. Welcome everybody to the first session of the day and of the conference. My name is Scott Wilkinson. My Twitter is up here. Oops, this thing needs to stay right there. At .NET Nuclear, and I work for a DNN Gold partner, Blue Bolt, which is one of the sponsors here. Before I get started, one of the things I like to do is I like to give away something so that this is definitely worth your time to come to my session. So do any of you guys know about DNNhero.com? It's a training site for DNN. If any of you don't have an account already, you can get a 1-month free trial. And if you don't have this written down, it's okay. I'll share the slides at the end. But basically, just send an email to Adderson Olviera. It's Adderson@DNNhero.com with the subject line 1-month free trial, DNN-Connect, something like that. He'll understand. And you can put in the body, thank you, whatever, it doesn't matter. But go to DNNhero.com/register. Don't just click buy or try or whatever the button is. Go to /register, and it's just a DNN site. Just register on there, create an account, and then send the email. He will turn you on for 1 month, and you have access to all the videos. And hopefully this will be a video pretty soon, what I'm going to talk about today. A little bit of background. I started doing DNN development, I think, in 2012. And somewhere around 2012, 2013. I think 2013 was the first time I ever spoke at a DNN conference. And, you know, back then, these are the tools that I used. This is all I needed to know to build a custom extension for DNN. Have anybody bought that book? I think it came out in 2010 or something like that. So those are the only tools that I needed. And then in 2015, I started learning more and getting into JavaScript frameworks like AngularJS, Angular 1.0, whatever they call that. And I started doing videos on DNN Hero about, SPA development. And so, this is around this time, I think I became an MVP for DNN. So in 2015, I was on top of the world because I knew Angular and I knew, how to build a module. And so I thought I was really smart and I knew everything. But then something happened between 2015 and 2017. And all of a sudden, in order to build a modern application, and I don't know, have you guys felt this way? It's like all of a sudden I didn't know anything. And I felt like I was starting from the beginning. There's all these new technologies, JavaScript technologies, and I didn't know anything, and so I had to start over. And so really last year is when I had to really dig in. Every so often as developers, we have to just dig in and retrain ourselves, right? And that's probably why you're here today. So what I'm going to show you today is how to build a persona bar extension that uses React, uses the React components that DNN has built for us, and hopefully make it a little more understandable to you than it was to me when I first started. And I saw this and I was like, well, I don't even know what to do. Step 1. Has anybody not done this yet? So you need to install Nodejs, which comes with NPM, which is Node Package Manager. There was a blog written by, I think it was Ash Prasad from DNN on the DNN community blog where they reference this link as well. So this is just simply install this on your machine. There's a Windows installer that you can install and get Node.js on your machine. And then one thing that was confusing to me is once I installed Node.js, and I think it was the latest version is 7.2 something, I don't know what it is. But I noticed that whenever I ran Node in Visual Studio, it would run, I would get all these errors because it was running version 6. So the way to get around that is go to your, in Visual Studio, go to Tools Options. I think this is 2017, but I think it looks similar in 2015. Go to Tools Options, and then under Projects and Solutions, External Web Tools, the path to the node that you installed, not the one that Visual Studio has, which it usually installs under Program Files Nodejs. So this is one step here that will avoid a lot of trouble and headache for you later. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit about how to get started in doing a persona bar React application for DNN. Now, I don't know if there's any templates out there now, but what I did was I created a starter project. How many people have used the Chris Hammond Visual Studio templates to just create a module, like a SPA module, MVC module? Okay, so this starter project that I developed, which is on my GitHub page, is similar to that. And eventually I'll create a Visual Studio template, so you don't have to go through these steps. But for now, it is not a Visual Studio template. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that starter project and we're going to put it in our Evoke 9 DNN 9.1 project. Okay, so I'm going to go. So what you can do is. Very small, but go to my GitHub page, which is GitHub/.NET Nuclear, and it's called DNN PB Starter. Let me make this bigger. And for right now, you could just download it, download the zip. And so you would do that. I've already done this here. And then go to your DNN 9 installation. Let me open oops. Now I'm lost. Which way? This way? There we go. So I have a DNN installation here. DNN-Connect 2017. That's very small, but I'm going to put it under desktop modules, and I'm going to create a folder called .NET Nuclear. Well, really, you can create a folder. What I suggest is creating a folder for your company name, whether it's your client or your company if you're developing the module. I like to organize all my DNN extensions under a folder under desktop modules. And I'll explain a little bit more about this later. So I create a folder for .NET Nuclear, and then I'll create a folder for that project, which is, I'll call it PB Starter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip that code into there. So this is essentially like a module project, and I'll explain why I do it like a module project in a moment. So I've downloaded the zip package here. Sorry, it's off screen, but I'm going to. Oops. Whoops. Well, that's not working. Oh, it did. Okay, so unzip it in here. It's going to look like a SPA module project. Okay. Might just be easier for me to put my slides up here. So like I said, step 3, desktop modules, company name, project name, just unzip that. Now here's where it gets a little confusing. And I have a file in the root here called getting started, which gives you these commands again. But the next thing you need to do is run a couple NPM command lines. One is the packaging manager just to set, this first one is to set the, DNN has provided some React components that are available to you, and I'll show you those in a little bit later if we have time. So the first thing I need to do is add that custom registry for those React components to our NPM, and it's simply npm config set registry and then the address. Now, this didn't work this week, and which is why I had to issue a support ticket to DNN. They were finally able to get the registry public. So now it's the links they had up on their website before on their blogs are wrong, and I think they fixed them all. So it's now DNN software-public/npm. So I'm going to go to my command prompt. That's really small, but I'll just simply paste that in there. Okay, and then I'll navigate to my directory that I unzip the module, just the root of that, and I'll cd to there, and then I'll run npm install. Oops, npm install. Now this is going to take a few minutes, so rather than us sit here and wait for that, we'll go back to my slides and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing. So again, just as an explanation of why I called this session practical. Oh, question?
Zoom in, please.
What's that? Zoom in. Yeah. Let me go ahead. Well,
Start the presentation.
yeah. So why I call this practical? Number one, if you read some of the blogs about how to build a persona bar extension in DNN, they'll talk about where this new module exists, and it's under the admin or desktop modules admin, DNN persona bar, somewhere in there. I like to organize all my DNN customizations under desktop modules, and so that's what I'm doing here, where I organize it as desktop modules, company name, and then this is just an example of what it might look like if you're developing for your clients several custom extensions. You might have some modules, some common libraries, maybe some skin tokens in those, organized in those folders, and then you have a solution file in the root of that folder where you can open all these things in one solution. So that to me is practical because I don't have to figure out where all these, custom components are in my DNN installation. If any of you, a few of you I think attended the DNN Summit that we had in Denver in the United States. And I noticed that when several speakers were talking about React development and things like that, they were switching between several tools. In fact, one presentation was from a gentleman, John Sheely, who was using VS Code to develop his React application that he would eventually move over to DNN. He was developing it by hosting it in Nodejs, using VS Code to develop, and the reason he had to do that was because Visual Studio 2015 did not have any IntelliSense for React, for the JSX type React language. But I found this confusing because if you're developing a module or persona bar extension, you have to go develop your web API services and Visual Studio, and then you develop your React application in VS Code, and using all these other tools. and it's too much for me. You guys are probably smarter, and you can figure that out. But what I'm about to show you is completely in Visual Studio 2017. The reason I'm using the newer version, the 2017, is because it has built-in support for running, and you'll see later, running Grunt and the IntelliSense for React and all that stuff. You can do this in 2015, it just requires a few additional components. The other thing that makes this practical is I put together a build process, and I think Peter and his persona bar demonstration he's going to do, I think tomorrow, is going to be similar, where he built a build process. And you know, I mentioned before that your persona bar extensions have to go into a completely different folder in DNN, you know, in the DNN install. But I also want to, organize it under desktop modules. So I have a build process that not only will copy files for me to the places that I need them to go, so that DNN recognizes it as a persona bar extension, but it also will build the DLL for me. It will package it for me, and all of the things that we would do before using MS Build. But I'm now using Grunt to do that, and I'll show you that in a little bit later. Okay, let's see how our process is going here. I think it finished. So if you're not sure what I just did, what just happened is I know it's too small to see, but there's a new folder that was added to my project called Node Modules. So what the Node Package Manager just did is look at my packaging file and looked at all the dependencies I needed. And most of this is for the React stuff. React requires all those tools that I showed you on that first slide, like Babel, ESLint, and all those other tools to compile the React code into plain JavaScript that can be used in the browser. So if everything worked, then that Node Modules folder was created and all those resources were downloaded. In addition to that, we downloaded the custom DNN component, React components that we're going to use in our persona bar extension to help us with like fields and validation and file upload and useful tools like that. Step 5, run the MVN Package Set. Okay, so has anybody used the Task Explorer tool in Visual Studio? Task Runner? Is that yeah, a couple of you. Where am I? Studio. So what I'm going to do is open up the project that I created. I will zoom in just a moment. I think this is right. You know what, I don't have the zoom tool here. Look at the screen. It's not zooming for me. So I opened up the project. Let me see if I can. And to find, where's my zoom here? I have it in 2015. Oh, maybe. See if I can. But you can open up the view by going to Other Windows. I'll just talk you through it. Other Windows, and it's called Task Runner Explorer. And once you open it up, usually you can dock it right here. Sorry, that's very small, but I'll show you on the slide. And you're going to see two things in here. You're going to see a grunt set of tasks and package and the NPM task. I'll explain that in a moment, how that build process works. But I'm going to go ahead and click this packaging task, and I'm going to click Run. So that's going to look like this right here. Now what that's doing is that's building the extension package for us, and so it'll create a zip file that we can then install in our DNN website. This is what the build process looks like, and I know it's a little bit, it looks like a lot, but all I did there was run that from the task manager, and it took care of all this process for me. Now, the way I designed this, and I'm sure Peter's is going to be different, his might be simpler, I don't know. But I'm using NPM, which requires a file called package.json, which you'll see in the root of this project. And what that does is it gives a list of all the dependencies that are needed to build the React parts of the application, which is the Babel and ESLint and the less compiler. And all those different things. And also you can set some environment variables. And then Webpack is a module builder, and it's typically, I'm using that to build the React components. That's the part that compiles the special React script into plain JavaScript for use by the browser. And so, or it's called a module bundler. That's essentially what it's doing. So NPM is figuring out all the dependencies, and then it's passing it to Webpack to then build the React bundle, which is the JavaScript bundle needed by the browser. And then I pass it to Grunt. Now, Grunt is just a common JavaScript task runner. And what I mean by that is it's like MS Build, what we've used MS Build for. You can do copy files, you can zip files, you can build your DLL, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I built this grunt.js, and you can just pick that up off my GitHub, off this project here. But it's building the DLL, it's copying the persona bar files to their proper location outside of this folder, and then it's creating also the DNN packaging if you want to do that, which will create a nice install zip that you can hand off to your customer to install your extension. So I no longer need to use MS Build for this, because this process has a lot more features, and it's also a lot quicker as well. I'm going to go ahead and install the extension so you can see it. Zoom in here. So I have a plain DNN 9.1 installation. Probably need to warm it back up here. Okay. And I'm going to just go to extension and click Install Extension. And I'm going to find my folder that I created for my module, which is under Desktop Modules, .NET Nuclear, Persona Bar Starter. Now, the folder that's created for the package is called dist, like for distribution, and so that's what happened when I did that package step. It put it in this distribution, and here's the module extension. Okay, so what that did is install 2 extensions in DNN in one package. it installed a module named PV Starter Module, and it also installed the Persona Bar extension. And I think it's called PV Starter as well. So let me refresh the page here, and if I refresh do a hard refresh on the site, you'll notice that Persona Bar extension will get added to the Persona Bar content menu. Here it is, Persona Bar Starter Project. I find that a common use for a Persona Bar project, which is what this project starter solution is giving you, is it's a Persona Bar application where a user can manage data on the Persona Bar. So that's an administrative user. And then there's a module, which is basically a SPA module also built into this template that you can place on other pages to display the data that your admin has entered. So for example, I can click, and it's kind of gives you kind of a add, update, delete. So I added a new item. Let's maybe add 2 of them. So this starter project gives you all the plumbing for the React components. You can do add, the edit, which brings up. Let me get this thing out of my way. Which brings up the accordion, the React accordion. I can go edit and change my fields. I can delete them, or I can hit cancel, which expands it. Then what I can do is I can install or add the module to the page that allows you to view that data. So have any of you used the Evoke, the DNN Professional Evoke content, where the new structured content? A few of you, where you can, it's similar to this. It's a Persona Bar extension where people can add like blog articles like that, title, description, whatever, and then you can place visualizer modules all over the site to display that same data. So imagine if you extended this to add tagging to each of those items. Let's say it's an article or a blog post. You can add tags, and maybe you can add module settings to filter, so you could put this same module on multiple pages but display different sets of the data that the user has added to the Persona Bar administrative interface. So this allows you to separate, because in the past when we built modules, we built a module with an edit view, right? Or a settings. And you have to go to the page the module is on to edit the data in that module, and that's the data that's for that module. Now we can break it apart into separate administrative components using Persona Bar extensions and view components, visualizer components, using a SPA module, for example. Now, another application, so I'm going to you have this available to you. It's on my GitHub page. You can use this as a starter project for your Persona Bar extensions. But what I wanted to show you a little bit, and I don't have time in 1 hour to teach you React and all the other things, so I'll have to let you kind of figure that out yourself. But I'll show you a little bit about the DNN components that they give you, the React components that they give you, so that you don't have to build all these complex pieces. Another project that I have out there is called Restaurant Menu. And if any of you have been to my training, I usually do like an all-day training at some of the American DNN events. And it's an 8-hour training where I take you through building a module. And in the past, I showed how to build this restaurant menu, which is a menu where you can add food items with pictures and build a list and then display that list on your website. You know, pretty simple. And so you can download that. I'll just show you that on my, I think it's installed here. So that looks like this, restaurant menu, and it has a listing of your food items, and you can add, edit, or delete these items, and includes a picture that you can upload, little yes/no sliders. And then, similar to this, I built it from the same template. There's a spa module that then can show those items on your website. Well, this gives a good display of what is capable out of the box with these DNN React components that the DNN Corp built for us. And this just gives you an idea. Every little piece in this Persona Bar extension project is, every component here is a DNN React component. I didn't build any of these text boxes. I didn't build this image tool, and this allows you to upload. It allows you to pick an image that's already on the file system. It's very full-featured. None of this stuff I had to build. This is the file upload component. This is the switch component. This is the multi-line component. This is a single-line input with error component. So not only did I not need to build those input components, but they also came with validation tools as well. Unfortunately, I can't get my Zoom to work on Visual Studio for some reason. I would show you what that looks like. Maybe I can. Components. A little bit better. But you can see that all the React stuff is in this, you can't read it, but pbstarter.web. I guess the convention for DNN is to build all your React components and JavaScript in this folder, project name .web. And that's what the grunt or the Webpack will build out into a file for the Persona Bar. But this is what React looks like. It's not real JavaScript. But the code in Visual Studio, like I said, in Visual Studio 2017, the IntelliSense works. Where, if you looked at this in 2015 without any additional add-ons, you would see squiggly lines all over because it doesn't understand any of the syntax. But this is what React looks like. It looks similar to C# code, much more than JavaScript does. You can put classes and imports and things like that. If you look through this project, you'll see that everything is broken out. The little one of the panels is a component. The little accordion piece is a component. The items in my list, that each row is a component. So React allows you to build small components into a larger application. And using a very similar syntax to C# and in a very similar construct where you can import components and then embed them on your page. So what these DNN components look like, see if I can find one. Single line input with error. And React is a little bit of a strange language in that, and I think it's different from Angular, the newest Angular, in that it looks like you embed these components in your HTML. It looks like HTML, but really the compiler will actually turn that into a combination of JavaScript and HTML elements. But you can see that there's one of the components, single line input with error, and all these attributes that I can specify, max length, the error message, the label, the tooltip message, all sorts of attributes that you can specify. And that way you don't have to build all that. You don't have to build validation. You don't have to build, all that, the UI, JavaScript stuff, which becomes difficult and very time consuming. Now, if you're wondering, how do you know what these components are and what the attributes are, you can go to you can go to GitHub. I think I put on the slide. That'd be easier to see. Whoops, maybe not. Oh, yeah, here it is. You can go to github.com, DNN software, DNN React Common. And from there, you're going to see a list. I think I can just click on this. You're going to see a list in their GitHub, in the GitHub code of all the components. So if I wanted to find out how do I do that single line input with error component, how do I use that? What you do is you just click on the folder, and then you can click on source, and then click on the JSX, which has the same name. And there, here are all the list of attributes that you can use. And as you can see in this case, that this component, not only does it do the text box with all the validation, but it also adds the label above it and the tooltip and all those messages. And and if you want to do custom events where like on change or on blur or any of those other things, you can also do that as well. I know this is a lot of information in a short amount of time. Are there any questions on any of this?
Yes. With the payment bar, you lose the scope of modularity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
That's a good point, yeah. When you're developing a persona bar application, you do lose the scope of the module ID. You do know the portal ID. So when you're designing your applications, it's a change in how you want to do things. So for example, if I wanted to display the restaurant, like for example the restaurant menu, each item you can do what DNN has done with their structured content, where you can put tags on the items, and then when you want to display it on various pages, you can do filtering. So, but you're correct in that all those restaurant menu items are going to be in this case, one table for that portal ID. And if I want to display them differently on the pages, you would want to build out some sort of filtering within your modules.
Apart from this page where you see all the source code, is there any other page where you can see each and every component in action, see what they do, and some documentation on all the properties?
That's a good question, and I don't know that. I don't think there is. DNN, has anybody been to their DNNsoftware.com/docs, their new documentation portal? They're starting to build out more documentation, certainly more than they've ever had before. In fact, I contributed a lot of the MVC documentation for MVC modules. I still don't think they have all of the documentation on React, on the React stuff. So I have to go here to understand. In fact, when I built this first model, what I had to do, because there was no documentation, when I built this first one in January, there was zero documentation. So I actually had to get the source code from GitHub of the DNN platform and the persona bar. Originally, the persona bar, all the built-in extensions that they built in version 9 was in a separate project. Now it's all in the core platform project. But I actually had to go there and I believe I looked at the roles editor to get all that example code. I had to figure it all out. So it is difficult, and we do need more documentation.
I think you could stress people out to leave in Corp if you start asking for documentation for all this stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
I stressed them out enough trying to get that MyGet repository back working because I said, I'm coming to DNN-Connect. I need it working. Yeah. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? Oh, we haven't seen the 10 minutes yet. We're doing fine.
20 minutes.
Okay.
Perhaps can you show us where the location in DNN folder
Mm-hmm.
for the DNN bar, where it's go?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Let me see if I can get my Zoom here. For some reason, when I go to the other screen, it doesn't work.
Maybe while you sort out the Zoom, so my session I think will be nice complementary to this session. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I delved into that he has touched on, and a bunch of stuff that he's touched that I won't go into. So if I advise you, if you want to know more about the persona bar extension, keep a tab on that session.
Oh, no, I did it. Okay, here we are. So it is desktop modules, admin, DNN persona bar, modules, and then we are supposed to create a folder for our modules. In this case, I like to use the company name dot project name.
Yeah, it didn't allow us to use company name /
No, it will not. Or will it? No, yeah.
Restriction for persona, for instance? They never thought of, we should namespace this too in the folder.
Right.
And it's a bit annoying when you see it.
So what you're going to see is there's a folder in my project called persona bar. And what's in the persona bar in my project looks like this, okay? And the reason I didn't teach on the very beginnings of persona bar, you can read that for yourself in the Ash Prasad's article. He explains this pretty well. It's pretty easy to understand. But if you have a persona bar extension, it has to be in here. And once DNN, just like a module has to be in desktop modules and has to be registered. The important things here is the convention is the project name.html. This just contains a reference to your React or your what's going to be inside your persona bar. So in this case, it's very simple. This is just a container for my React application. Whoops, that got moved over. And then scripts, and then bundles. This is the React application. So when I ran that process that built the React code into a single JavaScript file, it's called the project name -bundle.js. So this is what gets built for me. Now, one thing about the task runner is, and in my project I forgot to mention here, is in the task runner. Now notice you can run the grunt tasks, and I have them individually, in here like clean, compress. I didn't mean for you to have to run all these, but you can run these individually if you want, individually. What I did was I set up 2 custom NPM tasks for you. One is package, which I just showed you, And like I mentioned before, what that does is when I run this, it builds the application, it copies the persona bar files, it builds the React components into that bundled JavaScript, and then it copies the persona bar files to the location it needs, and it packages that all of our things to be able to install it in DNN. The package includes both the module installation and the persona bar installation. Now, if you're just building a persona bar application, you don't need the module part of it, you can just remove that. But the other thing that it does, and one thing I found helpful, is every time you make a change to your React and you want to just test it, you don't need to build the package again and install it. You know, once you've installed it once, that's enough. So I also built another task, and it's called build dev. And what build dev does is just the things that I need to test my persona bar. So it rebuilds the DLL. So if I make changes to my services, my web API services, it rebuilds that. It looks like I have a debug statement in there. So it'll also give me any kind of output errors if I did something wrong in my React code. So this is the compilation for the React. And you can see I left a debugger statement in there. So I need to go remove it from this file here. So what's helpful is I don't have to go between VS Code to develop my React and then move it over and then test it. I can simply make a change to my React component and then run build dev, and that will copy the files to the persona bar folder that needed, and I just simply need to refresh and then test. But you might say, well, that's still kind of difficult. I still need to go here and run this. What's also available to you within the task runner is you can set up bindings, and you could set bindings up to where you could set it to run build dev after any build. So I could set this up to where if after any build it's going to run this task, so all I have to do is build the project and then it will run this npm task. So if it's more comfortable for you to just, you're used to just making changes, build. And then this will also copy the persona bar files to the place you need, and you simply need to refresh your site and test. Any other questions on that?
Yes. You told about React auto-completion, to have
Like the IntelliSense? Yes.
In Visual Studio 2017, how do you configure it?
What's nice about 2017 is you don't have to configure it. In 2015, you do have to install a React add-on, I believe, to make that work. But that's why I like 2017, because this right here is no add-ons. This installed, and it works. In fact, in 2015, you can't run grunt tasks from the task runner without an additional add-on. And I believe NPN isn't. You have task runner, but I don't know if NPN is available in 2015 without an add-on. I think you have to add that, or Webpack, or any of these other. So this is 2017, no configuration at all.
Another question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another question. Now, after that you use the React components, do you see it as a real benefit, or do you think also going the way not using the DNN React components and going your own way with your influence and front-end tools you have would also be another way to go?
I feel like with persona bar development, one of the problems we had with module development in the past is that everybody's user interfaces, whether it's DNN Sharp or, Bring to Mind or whoever is, everyone has their own look, their own UI, whether they're using jQuery or Angular. And I feel like by using these components, and like I said, they're mostly for the editing, right? They're, you know, text inputs and image upload. It makes extensions in DNN with regard to administrative editing look very uniform. And so I don't see a reason, like for example, that image upload that I showed you, that's just the file upload React component, which handles uploading of images, the drag and drop uploading, or files. You can configure it to whatever extension you want to limit. It also allows you to pick a file from the, what do they call it now? The asset manager, the file manager. So why would you want to build your own, you know, file upload when it, you know, and not only that, but it just looks consistent with the rest of DNN's administrative interface. So I haven't seen a reason to do anything unless you find a component that you don't like or that, you know, you need something special.
And one more question.
Mm-hmm.
How many extensions do you think are out there right now using this technique, or is it?
Using the technique that I, one. Yeah, I mean, this is new, and Peter, using his technique, he's probably maybe one or two. Him, yeah. I mean, this is so new that we're all trying to learn it. I mean, I don't know about Peter and several others, but we're all trying to learn it. So, yeah, it's going to be. I'm sure by next year we'll have many more. We'll have templates. We'll have more learning and training available to us.
This might be a stupid question, but it's probably worth asking.
Sure.
That going towards React is quite a big change. It's obviously new technologies and very popular.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the rest of the platform starting to leverage some of this? Because obviously there's a lot of investment gone into it,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't see that the rest of it isn't going to change. Do you see, is there a roadmap to say, well, you can start doing React in normal module development? And
I have been asking at the MVP meetings. Yeah, you want to?
I use React in all my modules.
Yeah.
you do?
No, not just in this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just one more
But
iteration.
you see it as
It's
being much more encompassing across the
Yeah, it's completely dependent. It's like either you choose for something like Angular, which is a more complete
Yeah.
solution, or you use React to render stuff. But right now, there's not a single thing I'm doing anymore without using React.
yeah.
Well, I will be asking. I did not understand how to use React within a module because the persona bar framework registers the React framework on the page. But now I think they've changed that, and there's more people doing React development in the modules and using the React components from DNN in modules too.
And in the opposite, it's possible to do some personal bar development without React to do with other JavaScript
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, and in fact, the sample code that Ash Prasad from DNN gave in the DNN community blog did the hello world, which was not useful for me at all. You can just do HTML or SPA development in your persona bar without using any of the React components. But again, the problem with that is once you start building a more complex solution in the persona bar, you really do want not only the React framework to be able to develop more complex things, but the DNN components that come with it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I do see DNN putting up a lot of emphasis on React as opposed to Angular. The explanation we were given at the DNN Summit, I think it was the DNN Summit, with why they went with React instead of Angular, the new Angular 4, 3, or whatever, I don't know, understand the versions there. 4. They skipped 3. Is because Angular, when they started doing this development last year, Angular was in beta forever, and they just wouldn't, there was no roadmap, and DNN didn't know what to do. React was more mature. But it turns out it wasn't a bad decision, because even though that was the decision, I mean, that doesn't seem very deep to me, but it turned out to be a good decision. I think on Elon's slide in our introduction, The React was number one. React was number one in Stack Overflow. So although Angular, I think, may catch up a little bit, I mean, I think React is probably one of the most popular right now of the new, you know, what do you call it? ES6 scripting JavaScript technologies.
I do a very simple one-on-one on React in my session in case you want to learn a little bit more. And I combine it with TypeScript, which is
Yeah, which is why I didn't show that, because you want to talk to him about that. He's the expert on that. I'm just trying to show you how to make it easy for the regular people, not the smartest people, just the regular people like me. Any other questions? I think we'll break a little bit. I think we're right on time. So, well, thank you for coming, and yeah, thanks for all the sponsors that